Conservative U.S. Supreme Court justices signaled on Monday that they will uphold the legality of President Trump's firing of a Federal Trade Commission member. Now, that would give a historic boost to presidential power. Mr. Trump fired Rebecca Slaughter in March, years before her term was set to expire. She sued, and a lower court ruled she be reinstated. Now, the Trump administration has appealed that. We should say the FTC, of course, an independent governing agency combating monopolies by enforcing antitrust law. Its commissioners are given tenure protected terms by Congress to keep those offices free from political interference by presidents. On Monday, conservative justices appeared sympathetic to the Trump administration's position that those tenure protections unlawfully encroached on presidential power. The lawyer representing Rebecca Slaughter argued some agencies must be insulated from politics, and we are expecting the court to rule by the end of June. Our North America correspondent Namia Iqbal has more analysis here.
Agencies like the FTC are government entities, but they are meant to be free from any political interference by the president. Now, Rebecca Slaughter was actually appointed by President Trump in his first term, kept on by President Biden, and then Mr. Trump sought to fire her back in March, and his administration said it was because she was inconsistent with the administration's priorities. But Democratic senators and many anti-monopoly groups believe that this is because Mr. Trump wants to remove anyone in the agency that may challenge him or may be against big corporations. Now, this 90-year precedent, known as the Humphreys Executor, it's been chipped away by justices over the years, and so I don't think it's that surprising to many legal experts who looked at the arguments made by the Supreme Court today, which looked to be ruling in favour potentially of Mr. Trump's position, and that fell down ideological lines. If this precedent is struck down, it would bring about one of the largest changes to the structure of the federal government in decades. The big question will be, if Trump can fire FTC commissioners, then will the decisions that the FTC take start to just be an extension of his political wishes and the wishes of any future president? And the other question that it poses is, will it protect consumers and prosecute fraudsters based on Mr. Trump's political preferences and, again, any future president's political preferences? And then if it does rule in his favour, could this then extend through to lots of other commissions which are involved in issues protecting the public? The Supreme Court is expected to make the ruling next summer.
Namia Iqbal there. And let's get a legal perspective now with the co-director of the Georgetown Center for the Constitution, Stephanie Barclay, here with me in the studio. Stephanie, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So how expansive of a ruling are you expecting this to be? Do you think it would allow the president to fire leaders of independent commissions?
Yeah, so this is a case about how much power the president should be able to exercise over officials operating within the executive branch. And the Trump administration acknowledged that there are at least 24 agencies that would likely be affected by this ruling that have similar sort of four-clause limitations as the FTC. But what likely won't be affected by this ruling are Article 1 adjudicative bodies. The Trump administration acknowledged those are different. And the Federal Reserve is an agency that a number of justices signaled has a unique history and might have a different place. It's sort of a quasi-private entity. So there are going to be certainly, I think, some limitations in terms of how broadly this precedent would sweep.
And we should say the three liberal justices seem worried that this would lead to uncontrolled, unchecked presidential power. Sonia Sotomayor, the justice, saying, you're asking us to destroy the structure of government. What is her concern there?
Right. Her concern is Congress may have decided that it's important for there to be independence for these agencies, and so there might be too much power in the hands of the president if he's able to check them. But the counter argument is, if these executive officials aren't responsible to the president and therefore the American people, who are they responsible to and who are they accountable to in our American democracy? Congress had initially anticipated that for many of these agencies, it would be able to use sort of a line item veto to have some of its own power to rein in agencies if it disagreed with them. But in the 1980 case of Chadha, that was taken away from Congress. And so Justice Barrett pointed out that might be part of the reason why the constitutional equilibrium has already been upset, and we can't leave agencies with no oversight. And so if not the president, who will exercise oversight over them?
So if I understand that correctly, it's, that officials within the executive branch should be kind of extensions of the president's power. What about the idea behind independent agencies serving as, basically technical experts who can make these decisions without any political influence?
Yeah, so there are good policy arguments about that. It runs into constitutional problems in terms of where in our Constitution have we set up a fourth branch of government of technical experts that aren't accountable to anybody. Prior to Humphrey's executor, for the first 100 years of our nation's history, the precedent was that the government was able to remove agency officials. And so Justice Barrett pointed out it wasn't until the 1880s that we first saw these sorts of for-cause removal provisions come about. So there's an interesting question of what is the departure here? Would overruling Humphreys be the departure, or was Humphreys itself a departure from our constitutional framework?
But either way you look at it, it would mean going back to how things were about 90 years ago, right?
That's correct. And with the caveat that Humphreys, since 2010, has been whittled away by a number of precedents. And so one argument is, well, we've been seeing death by 1,000 cuts. Is this going to be another minor cut, or is this going to be the case that delivers the knockout blow, so to speak, for Humphrey's executor?
Okay, plenty to keep a lookout for there. I guess the big question that Namia hinted at as well is whether this ruling could see Americans less protected. You know, if the president is able to put pressure on agencies to make decisions that benefit either big business or his political allies, could that hurt your average American?
Yeah, that's certainly a concern that's being raised in this case. Is sometimes Congress seemed to think that independence was important for the average American. A concern raised on the other side is some of these agencies, like the FTC, now have power to implement penalties against average Americans in a way that they didn't when Humphrey's executor was decided. The FTC didn't have that power at the time. That's a big power that can hurt average Americans. Should they be able to exercise that power, those agencies, without any sort of political accountability?
Stephanie Barclay, thank you so much for your insights here. Very much appreciate you joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.